Hey guys, Amanda here. I'm going to show you how to make those face masks out of fabric. The one I showed yesterday. It's a Cricut pattern. It's really nice, really simple to do. So let's get started. So you have two pieces of the pattern. You're gonna have the number 1, which is the outer portion, and the number 2, which is the inner portion. You're gonna wanna cut 2 of each. So you're gonna have 4 pieces total. If you're using a printed fabric, you're gonna wanna do one face up and another one face down, so you have the pattern on both sides. If you're using solids, it's not as important. So it's gonna look something like this when it's cut. So I have one way and one the other way, right? Because we're gonna sew the curved parts together. All right, so I used a mat and a rotary blade, so you just throw it on there. You put your pattern and then you just cut over it with enough pressure. If you don't have that, feel free to use chalk, like sidewalk chalk, along the edges. And then you can just take it off and use regular scissors to cut around the edges. Okay? Easy peasy. Get this out of the way. So, first things first, we are going to sew the 2 pieces together. So you have the 2 pieces, you're gonna sew right along the curved edge. You put them with their pretty sides to the inside. So you have 2 of the plain sides on the outside, and then just sew along the curve. So this one's already done. You can see I sewed it. So I'm going to do the lining now. So let's see. Can you see the sewing machine? Okay, that's okay. Good enough. I'm gonna put my light on it so I can see. All right, so put the foot down. I always do it the width of the foot if I'm just doing a basic stitch like this. I feel like it's a good size for a stitch. Gives you a decent allowance and it keeps it steady. Another trick I learned from my mom, if you're finishing the end of it and you don't want to have to knot it and all that, just hit the reverse and go back a couple and then come forward, and that'll kind of lock it in. All right, so once you have your outer and your inner sewn along the curve, we are going to snip them. So the way you want to snip it is probably every like centimeter or so. Let's get this light out of here. You'll just cut in. You don't want to cut far enough to cut the stitch, right? You're just trying to break it up so that the curve is smooth when you flip it inside out. So let's just go along here. The more little cuts, the better. You don't have to dice it all up, but you want to get quite a bit to make it nice and clean. All right, so there's that one. I'm gonna have to get my light. Sorry, I'm an old lady now. Need to have lights for everything. So this whole thing is insane, isn't it? I can't believe it's going on. I personally don't need a mask for anything. They're really only recommended if you need kind of like a little bit of an extra barrier. Again, like my notice said, these aren't approved to really do much except keep other people's wet sneezes and stuff from getting all over you. If you're in constant contact with people face to face, it's probably not a bad idea to have one on. I'm still working, but luckily I have a cubicle to myself that I can deal with. Okay, so now, I'll show you all this one. You can turn it inside out. This isn't one of the steps right now, but you can just see what it looks like. If you turn it inside out, now you have that nice curve already. And it's beautiful. So it's basically done, right? So you're going to get your lining. I would suggest using something like a soft cotton. They have like a sateen cotton that would be really nice for this, kind of like a silky bed sheet. That way when it's up against your face, it's not very rough. For the exterior, I used a duck cloth. So it's kind of an outdoor fabric exterior, so it's kind of thick and rough, but they're typically stain resistant and they're easy to clean. But be sure you are using 100% cotton because you don't want to irritate your face. So the next step, so we're still inside out, right? I have my seam on the outside. I'm going to fold the edge down, okay? So that it makes just a small seam. This doesn't have to be a specific size. You don't want it too huge, maybe a 1/4 inch. That's what I'm going to sew it at. So what you're doing here is you're just finishing that edge so that you don't have this mask fraying and falling apart as soon as you use it. So let's go ahead and throw this down. I'm gonna reverse at the start. I didn't do that on the last one I did. Reverse on the start. So this side, since it is the lining, isn't going to be the side that you put anything in. Like you're not going to put the elastic through this. This is just finishing up that edge. So again, if the seam is on the outside, if the seam is on the outside, you want to fold it up so that the seam, all the ugly stuff is on the same side, okay? So let me fold that down. It's nice if you have time to iron in between every pass to get these really nice and flat and pretty, but I'm just kind of winging it. I got a few to make tonight, so. That doesn't mean they're not quality, but they're just going to be a little bit quicker than the rest. I don't know if y'all know this, but there's a little like razor on here, and whenever you need to cut something, you can just pull it up and pull it down. It's super cool. It took me unnecessarily long time to learn that, so I just wanted to share. Okay, so now we have our two sides. They're about the same size. That's exactly what you're looking for. You don't want them to be too different. So completed. We sewed along the edge, we snipped the edge, and we folded it so we have a nice pretty seam on the inside. All right, so when we get to the exterior one, this is the one that we're actually going to make a little pocket for the elastic to run through. So you're going to want to do a little bit more. If you see on the pattern, it gives you a good allowance. So if you want to like mark that somehow on yours, that's good too. Again, I'm just going to kind of wing it. I'm going to do it a little bit bigger, however big I think I'm going to need, how much room. So about an inch, same. It's almost about the same that pattern showed. And then you want to sew close to the raw edge on this one because you need this big pocket, okay? So let's go ahead and get this sewn. Remember, reverse on the front. Sew down and then reverse on the very back end. Okay. I'm really hoping I don't run out of thread in my machine. I didn't check the bobbin before I started. Okay, so now you can see I have this nice pretty seam, and I can still have a little like hole. You can see right through there. There you go. That I'm gonna eventually put the elastic through. So there is one complaint I have about this pattern. It leaves this edge raw that you put the elastic through. I don't really like that. I may modify it in the future to fold it down a little bit to clean those edges up. But as of right now, that's the way the pattern is. I like quadruple check because I didn't like it that much. But nope, that's what it says to do. I guess it would be hard to turn the curved edge in, but that's okay. So now I'm gonna do the other side, just folded it down. So what I did, to make sure it's symmetrical, I measured it against the one that I just did. So I put it down on the table, folded this back the exact same amount. Now I'm gonna go sew. Oh, not yet. Okay. So let's throw this down. Reverse. Alrighty, so we are 2/3 of the way there. Look at how quick that's been. Okay, so you have your two. You have your seams on the outside, you have both your seams on the edges. You want to put the pretty sides together now on the inside. So you see I have a pretty side in here and an ugly side. We'll call this one the pretty side because it has the pretty seam inside. So I am going to put, I'm gonna hold this up. So I'll hold my seam up and then you're gonna hold the other ugly seam down, and then you can kind of finagle your way for them to kind of nest inside each other. So now they're nested. You can clean it up, make it a little bit more tidy, line up your edges. What essentially you want, no matter if you did it this way with your outer on top or with your inner on top, you want your ugly edge here, and then if you look inside, it's the ugly edge again, okay? So ugly edge is on the outside. You can see that these line up really nice. We're gonna have that beautiful overlap right there with the pretty one on the outside. So now, probably the most stitching you're gonna do on this, you're just gonna stitch all across the top and then reline it up and stitch all across the bottom to close up. Do not stitch on the sides. The sides are gonna remain a little open pocket, a little pizza pocket, okay? You're gonna leave that open, but you're gonna stitch all along the top and all along the bottom. All right, let's go. It gets a little tiny bit tricky when you get to the curved part, but nothing you can't handle. Do not, okay, so start sewing here on the lining. Don't sew from the very edge because then you're gonna close up your little hole. Okay, so start sewing from right here. You got this. All right, throw my sewing machine on. When you get to the little center seam, decide which way you want it to lay, and put both the like parts the same way. Don't have them opposite, put them the same way. It just works out a little bit better. I typically just do it whichever direction the machine is going. Sorry y'all are having to see my messy craft room in the background. No matter how many times I clean it, it is never clean. I just have too much stuff. Someday I'm gonna go through and throw away all the old crafts that I don't use anymore. I don't think today is gonna be that day, but. Okay, so now, let's go to this side. You can see that I have it stitched all across the top. I'm gonna go again, like I said, so now we have it open on 3 sides. I'm just gonna stitch along the bottom side of it. You're going to want to try and make your seam lay the same direction for continuity, and so the seam knows which way to go when we flip it inside out, okay? So always start by matching up the center. You can kind of like pull them with your nail if you have one, if you have nails. Pull it with your nail to line them up and then pull it out to the edge. You can pin it if you want. I've never been much of a fan of pinning stuff unless I absolutely have to. I know, like I said, I'm a terrible seamstress. I just kind of wing it. But that's okay. I'm not making any great gowns for anybody. One year I decided I was gonna make my own Christmas party gown from work Christmas party. And I bought a lot of expensive velvet and did not even try. I was too afraid to ruin the velvet. Maybe one day. I still have it. It's pretty red. Red, red, red. All right, so now we have our entire thing stitched together. Next step, just turn it inside out. So you're gonna start pulling, cut off all your extra little threads and everything, just so it cleans it up a little bit. Let me just clean mine up a touch. All right. Okay, so then just turn, 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 kind of force it. Shake it like a sock. And there you have it, your almost complete face mask. Yay! Okay, so it should look a little something like this, a little funky tube. Just pull up. I always pull it apart and then grab the center and pull it up. Do the same thing on the bottom and then follow all along your edges and just kind of fold it down. Again, this is where a good place where an iron comes in, because you can iron everything and get it nice and flat. You're gonna want to pop your lining inside. And there you have it. It's the shape of a face mask. Beautiful, yay. Let's put it on. All right, so it's already looking pretty great. All we have left to do is put in the elastic on the sides. So fun story, there's currently an elastic shortage. Well, for 1/4 inch elastic, because so many people are making these. So one thing I found that's gonna make this use a little bit less elastic is if rather than going around the whole back of the head twice, you make little loops to go around your ear. So all you need to do, I would say about this much. Let me see, let me get my ruler. Do about 10 inches to allow you room to tie. Let me see, yeah. If you do about 10 inches, and then you're gonna need 2 of them. Yeah, so I called Joann's to see, because they're doing curbside delivery right now. And they said, they kind of laughed and they were like, no, we do not have elastic. So I said, I'm gonna be smart. I'm gonna go to the Walmart in Aransas Pass, because, I mean, do you think people out there are really using tons of elastic? Cleared out. So we're going to run this elastic through, okay? One easy way, a trick to run elastic through a small hole, because it's kind of like flexible, you take a safety pin and you pin the edge of it, okay? Don't poke yourself, but stick the straight pin through the edge. Watch, I'm gonna poke myself. I did it, yay. Okay, so now you have the elastic kind of hanging off the safety pin, and then we're just going to feed it through. So you can feel the safety pin in there and you can kind of grab it and pull it along. All right, So now we have it on either side. You can stitch it if you want. I'm just double knotting it. I'm not very good at stitching elastic, and I kind of don't want to waste it in case I mess it up. So I am just doing a straight double knot. Remember, if you knot elastic, I'm gonna make it like really tight. I'm gonna pull it out in a second. You want to pull from both directions, right? Because it's elasticy. So get your little edge and then pull, and then just keep pulling both ways. Now I have a nice little knot in there, and I'm going to turn it so that my knot is on the inside of the fabric and I don't have that big unsightly knot around my ear. Also, I'm sure that would get kind of irritating if you had it out there. So we don't want that. Okay, it's fighting me. I'll turn it in a minute. Okay, so second one, exact same thing on the other side. I'm like always afraid that it's just gonna go straight up my nail and like really, really hurt. Okay, so other side, go through, same exact thing. You got your safety pin, you're gonna pull, pull, pull. Okay, double knot. Pull it in both directions. Let's see what this one wants to go in. Okay, so at this point, you're done. So that's freaking cool, right? Like, how long did that take? 20 minutes? The first time I did it, I did it in the time it took me to watch an episode of How I Met Your Mother. So that's how I knew it was about 20 minutes. But it's okay if it takes you a little bit longer, or if you have any questions, you can call. There is an extra step if you would like to be fancy about it. So this one would work perfectly well. I'm gonna take off my glasses to put it on because my glasses don't really cooperate super well with this. So we have our loops, and then around the face. If it's not very snug or you want it tighter, you can tie the knots tighter. Like this would be a little loose, so I'd probably make the knots a little tighter. Or if it's too tight, you can maybe cut a bigger elastic. Some other options, you could run ribbon through it and tie it around the back of your head. It just might be a little bit more difficult to tie. You can get, I saw a bunch of people are getting hair ties, and on the step right before you sew that seam, they're gonna put the hair tie in there and then they're sewing it. So all really cool stuff. But if you want an extra trick, my Facebook friend Ileana, my friend EJ and Brittany's sister and sister-in-law, mentioned pipe cleaners. And so I gave it a try earlier and it actually worked super well, and I was like, awesome. So thank you, Ileana. So what you're gonna wanna do is measure down maybe about 1/2 inch, and then you're just gonna sew a straight stitch across, following the curvature of this, but you're just gonna sew about 1/2 inch down. And it doesn't matter how far out you go, maybe about halfway. What you're gonna do is you're gonna run a pipe cleaner through there, so that way you can actually mold it to the bridge of your nose, like real medical ones are. So let's do that really quick. Again, I'm gonna start about halfway, and I'm gonna go a little bit further down. You wanna feel where your seam is. Don't sew over that little seam that you can already feel in there, because that's just gonna give you more problems. Okay. Again, reverse, especially on this stitch at the beginning. Get a little tricky. Make sure my seams are laying flat inside of that puppy. Okay, reverse on the other side. Beautiful. So now you can see, I don't know if you can see, you have a little stitch right across the bridge of the nose. Let me cut this excess off. And then you're gonna wanna take a pipe cleaner and on the inside, just run it straight through. So I cut a pipe cleaner in half already, about 6 inches. It's not a big deal how long it is. I mean, you don't want it coming out of the side of the mask, but just whatever feels comfortable on that. And then you're going to just take it and run it on the inside. The safety pin won't work on that because there's nowhere to safety pin it to. But it should be pretty strong. It may give you a little struggle across the seam. Mine's kind of fighting me right now. But that's okay. We will make it. We'll get through it together. There we go. And once you get it far enough on the other side, you can probably go in and grab it. I actually pushed mine a little bit too far. So let's scoot it back. I got so over eager that it went that I just kept going. Okay, so that's good. So let me show you. So now we have a pipe cleaner in the top of it. We'll take off my glasses again. This is an adult large. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I like it because it kind of goes under, so it gives a little bit more coverage. Put that behind, and now I can push it and it molds to my nose. You see that? So it's a little bit more secure. Obviously these aren't super secure, super tight, but that's it. Thanks guys.